Hello, my name is Damaris Morales. I'd like to talk to you about staccatos. What is the meaning of the word staccato? A staccato is an articulation mark indicated with a dot or a wedge above or below the head of the note that specifies the length, the volume, and the style of attack of individual notes. Staccatos are played differently in each instrument. In the piano, it indicates to play the notes detached and bouncing. There are three types of staccato marks: the regular staccato, the staccatissimo, and the portato. Staccato is written with a small dot above or below the head of the note. This indicates that the note should be played shorter than notated, usually half of the value, leaving the rest of the metric value silent. Staccato marks may appear on notes of any value, shortening the performed duration without speeding the music itself. Staccatissimo. Staccatissimo is also known as finger staccato. It's written with a small wedge above or below the head of the note. In piano music, this indicates that the note should be played even shorter than staccato, usually less than half of its value. It is usually applied to quarter notes or shorter notes. In some instances, the two types of staccatos are used interchangeably. Portato. Portato is written with dots and a slur over the head of the notes. In piano music, it indicates to play the note in a sustained manner by detaching it slightly from the following notes, usually taking away less than half of the value of the note. But not all staccatos are created equal. Some staccatos are played from the forearm or from the wrist, and others are played with the fingers only. It depends on the style and the composer. But the important thing to remember is that staccatos require a high degree of hand and arm motion. Technically speaking, the staccatos are an excellent way to teach motion in combination with finger articulation. Legato and staccato touch are the foundation of piano technique and musicianship. How to play staccatos and how to teach different staccatos. There are several ways to play staccatos, and depending on what part of the arm you use, they take different names. First, we have forearm staccato, then we have wrist staccato, and then we have finger staccato, and lastly, portato. Forearm staccato. In this touch, the hand hangs loosely from the wrist and drops freely onto the keyboard, applying the same weight principle we use in a hand drop position or free fall. This touch produces a deeper, rounder tone as the weight of the arm is moving towards the keys. Dmitri Kavalevsky, the Opus 39, Little Dance. Starting at a slow tempo, you use this motion. Both hands are playing the forearm staccatos. As they move faster, then you can start moving a little faster once you gain more confidence and the fingers get stronger. Continuing with polka from the Dmitri Kavalevsky Opus 39. Combination of legato and then forearm staccato. Little Joke, also from Kavalevsky Opus 39. Combination of two note slurs with forearm staccatos. So each finger, each eighth note is receiving a motion, individual motion, hand drop, to be able to produce the forearm staccato. It gives you a pleasant sound, a round sound. Then, as the student masters the movement, you can start speeding up to. Examples of great literature to teach forearm staccato is Burgmüller. So in the Burgmüller, we have the arabesque, piece number 2 from the opus 100. We have forearm staccato for the accompaniment. This is a good example of how to play accompaniment in a way that is pleasant. It's not a stiff or harsh sound, but you want to produce a sound that is bouncy. Combined with a rolling attack in the right hand, and at the end of the grouping we have a portato. So this is a great example of how to use combination of legato and forearm staccato. Other examples of forearm staccato is on La Charles, number 9 of the opus 100 of Burgmüller. So we have to do the rhythm in 6/8. It is imitating the horn, the sounds of the horn. So here, as you can see, you have to use a lot of bounce. So you teach the bounce from the forearm, and by using a very loose wrist but firm fingers and knuckles. Number 15, Ballad from the opus 100. Very common piece among students' repertoire. C minor, using the forearm staccato again at the beginning, combined with a legato touch in the left hand. Is a perfect example when you need to move from forearm staccato to something faster. When your tempo gets faster and faster, you can move from forearm staccato to wrist staccato because simply the tempo just doesn't allow you to use the forearm staccato anymore, and then you can move to wrist staccato. Again, this is a great example of how to start combining different types of staccatos depending on the tempo you have. Wrist staccato. In this attack, the hand hinges from the wrist, lifting on the upstroke and allowing the hand to drop on the keyboard on the downstroke. The hand bounces up and down, producing a crispy and percussive sound as the weight of the hand is moving towards the keys. Slow tempo, you do use the forearm staccato. However, as you go faster, you can change to wrist staccato. Little joke, if you go slow. As you go faster, you can move to wrist staccato. In Robert Schumann, we have the Wild Horseman in A minor. This piece is a perfect example of how to use wrist staccatos. So you gotta use individual motion for each note. What a faster tempo. Another good example of wrist staccato is in the Beethoven Sonata Opus number 3 in the last movement. Finger staccato. This finger attack differs from the others in that the finger is the one doing most of the work without the aid of the wrist or the forearm. The finger uses a plucking action with the weight of the hand moving away from the keys. This touch produces a brittle, snappy sound. Finger staccato or staccatissimo. The finger starts on the key, and as you move away from the keys is when you play. Also brittle sound to it. An example of finger staccato will be Beethoven Sonata Opus 10 number 1 in C minor, with the wedge written on the note. So again, what you look for is the finger just stopping the sound with the wrist, quick wrist motion. Another good example of finger staccato will be when you're doing hopback. So you can't really use forearm or wrist because the thumb is holding. Combined with forearm when you want heavier, big chords. Portato. This touch is produced by using the forearm and the wrist in a slightly forward motion similar to the forearm staccato, only that you stay on the note even longer as if dragging the hand from one key to the other. You drag the hand from one key to the other, slightly in a forward motion. Very expressive touch. It's used for expressive passages. A good example, Debussy, Reveille. Also, Chopin, Nocturne. Right? In the section when you get to C minor. Finger staccato in the Beethoven Sonata Opus 2 number 1 in F minor. As you move up from the beginning of the broken F minor arpeggio or F minor chord. In a slow motion, you can see how the finger moves very quickly. Then, when you go faster, then you just move a little bit faster, but maintain the hand in one piece. Come differently to the forearm staccato, where you want to break the wrist slightly and move this forward and up and down. In the finger staccato, you want to keep the forearm completely quiet, where the finger does all the work. See? And this is a perfect example of how these two staccatos differ from one another. So whereas in the other staccatos, the forearm, the wrist staccato, you have the aid of the wrist and the forearm. In this one, you don't use any of that. You keep the hand and the arm in one piece, so that way you can move a lot quicker over the keyboard. Another good example of combining different staccatos, and where predominantly the finger staccato is used, is in all of the classical sonatinas. It's preferable to use finger staccato, right? Where you stop the sound very quickly. But you can combine the three staccatos that you've learned so far. So for instance, in the Clementi Sonatina, opus 36, number 3, you can use first finger staccato, then wrist staccato, and watch how I go to the end to the forearm staccato. All of those are finger staccato. Now moving to a little more of this motion from the wrist, okay? Get louder, then when you get to the end, even more sound, so you use more muscles from the whole forearm. Ultimately, one question that I frequently hear people ask themselves is what staccato to use in Bach, especially because we're trying to resemble the sound of the harpsichord, and we use the term non-legato as a thing that it should be used in Bach, right? So the staccato that's best suitable for a non-legato effect will be the forearm staccato. For instance, in the Bach Invention F major, a great way to show how to use the forearm staccato to resemble the sound of the non-legato, right? Company, going along with a high finger legato. However, if you go much faster, it makes sense to change to a finger staccato. Right? Another example will be the toccata in G major. The whole passage is written in 16 notes. And in order to resemble the sound of the harpsichord, we use a very short, very quick articulation, resembling that of a finger staccato. And that's the approach I will use with Bach or other Baroque composers. Another good example is the Sonata in C major by Scarlatti. So you can start with very individual motion, using almost like a wrist staccato when you do it slowly. Then you can move to totally finger staccato. And that way you really get the effect necessary for the lightness and quickness of touch that you need in this composer. In general, the composers from the Baroque require very light touch when you're doing this kind of staccatos. So what do you need for a good finger staccato? You need 4 things. First off, you need a finger that's strong, but it's quick. It has a quick finger action. A lot of mistakes the students do is that they try to do the finger staccato with very heavy hand. So they end up pushing into the keyboard, or the wrist gets very stiff and then they don't get any bounce, and then that sound doesn't sound like this. So those are common things that happen for students when they're trying to do the finger staccato. However, finger staccato it's quintessential, so important for good piano technique, because it develops quick finger, and we know that we all need quick fingers in the piano, and also very light forearm and very relaxed and loose wrist. So these are all elements that you need. So going back to what you need for good staccatos, you need an arm that is nice and light, the wrist that is relaxed, and finger that is strong and independent, like most people ought to do. love to be, right? So these are, in general, some of my advices for good finger staccato. Which staccato should I be teaching first? Well, it depends on the approach the teacher would like to take. Some teachers introduce the students into the piano with the portato touch. So that way you teach the hand drop as you go from one finger to the other, right? This allows you to develop strong fingers. However, most commonly, the approach that we use is to teach students starting from legato touch and then introducing staccato touch. In all cases, the best staccato to introduce first will be the forearm staccato. And then from there, moving on to finger staccato. And lastly, the wrist staccato. And the reason for introducing the wrist staccato last is because it's important to have a strong finger and a very loose wrist when you do the wrist staccato. So it's better to prepare the hand for that type of touch. So that's all for now. And I hope all of these ideas and demonstrations have been helpful for you. And I hope I'll see you soon. And if you have any questions, you can write me an email and I'll be happy to answer them. Until next time, I wish you all a great summer and I say goodbye now.